is it really that citizen science just shuffles around problems of science and society in new ways that we just don't know enough about really? Is it really democratic? Does it really involve people that are feeling that are not getting represented by scientific knowledge?
While citizen science is more en vogue than ever, social researchers increasingly question whether it is as democratic as we may think. Do we need to be more cautious about gender biases and power dynamics, hidden agendas, and their effects on trust in public institutions? Where does citizen science reach its political limitations? How can citizens be engaged most effectively? We recently had the opportunity to discuss these questions with one of the world's leading social scientists specializing in citizen science, our colleague Professor Kasperowski from the University of Gothenburg in Sweden.
Now, citizen science is more visible than ever in the history of science and in the history of Swedish science and policy. But from our preliminary results, it can't live up to expectations of democracy, inclusion. It creates inequalities when it comes to gender, and it also is regarded actually as, in some instances, as undemocratic, or that is a discussion that is starting in Sweden at the moment. And what we see over these 23 years is that citizen science, when it comes to biodiversity in Sweden, and I'm really, being a little bit gross here, is about boys and birds. Boys and birds and boys and birds. We see imbalances in the species that are interesting. We see imbalances, gender imbalances, when it comes to time spent outdoors. We see imbalances in the way people move around. So there's a lot of these gender imbalances, and well, of course, the argument could be, why should we bother about this? Data is data. No, that is because gender imbalances does things to data. That means that biodiversity will be defined from certain species only. So it will be the male gaze of biodiversity. So we need to think about this, what gets visible and invisible in these large data, big data practices. Activists, for instance, if an area in Sweden are threatened, or by some people then called threatened, by others say developed, it's not unusual that people move there and collect observations in that area. And as you know, Sweden is covered by forest almost to 70%. So if you are carefully, combing through an area for red-listed species, it will be very difficult not to encounter one. And that data is then being channeled by activist groups through these large infrastructures for citizen science that are usually located at universities in Sweden. And that data is then used to take legal action towards not only companies but also to public authorities in Sweden that are not fulfilling their work. They are not doing a careful enough inventory of the species in the place. And when you do that, the argument would be then for some people debating this, that this is undemocratic because you can't vote against a legal decision. And politicians must be held responsible for this via public referendum. It seems that citizen science are engaging people that are really engaged, so to speak, in this. They already have changed their behavior and are interested in contributing in this way also. What we see in citizen science projects in Sweden today is that they are heavily biased towards the male, the ones that have a higher education than the average. They also have a higher income, which probably means that they are actually occurring a larger carbon footprint there. And they are more resourceful more generally. So the real challenge would be then to find how do you mass mobilize people and make them change their behavior by making them understand that what they do really matters for the future. I think that that is the question that no one really has an answer to today.
We also asked Professor Kasperowski specifically about our Aurora project, where we aim at democratizing the governance of our energy systems, which we do exactly by empowering citizens. We help them to self-assess their carbon footprint and adapt how they use energy in their daily life. For this to be scaled up, people also need to be fully convinced that their own individual behavior can make an actual difference. To do this, we need to find a way to emotionally engage with them. Here is what Professor Kasperowski thinks.
I think we should look into the affections that can be connected to change. Not being so obsessed by the facts, because we already have the facts. We don't have to know anything more. We know what we are heading for disaster if we continue this way. Maybe we should try to explore venues of affection instead. For instance, how artwork or culture projects, film and stuff, music maybe, can change people's behavior. I'm not sure it can, but if you think about a piece of art that has really changed something in you, it is because it was deeply personal, but at the same time could touch a lot of people, might have almost universal quality. You know, those universal qualities that science also strive for, but you have it here in affections. Maybe there are something there for us to explore when it comes to change the behavior.